Hi, this is Elizabeth, one of the co-hosts of Beauties and Headcanons. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media.
How's it going, everybody? This is Keith.
And Katie, hosts of Coffee with Keith and Katie, here on Public House Media.
Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media. When you're done here, I hope you'll check out our show, Coffee with Keith and Katie,
where we talk about our lives and relationship over a cup of coffee.
A new episode airs on Facebook Live every Monday and Thursday at 7:30 p.m. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes so you'll never miss an episode of Coffee with Keith and Katie.
Thanks again for checking out the following broadcast on Public House Media.
Hello and welcome to Your Soccer Passport here on Public House Media. My name is Brice Burge. Ivan Sanchez Carrasco has the week off. Today we will be talking with Public House Media soccer analyst Zach Wolpoff about an interesting managerial situation in the French League, a new marketing contract with power player Relevant and what that could mean for leagues traveling to play in North America, and of course your world headlines. But first, Your Soccer Passport is sponsored by Squadcast. As podcasters that deal with analysts and guests from around the world, being able to record remotely is key. Current industry standards rely heavily on internet connection, but Squadcast changes that with a simple browser-based tool that requires no additional software to install. The audio is recorded locally as high-quality WAV files, then uploaded to the host's computer, allowing solid audio quality. To get started with your remote podcasting recording experience, go to squadcast.fm for your 14-day free trial. All right, first off, this segment is solo. As Ivan is got the week off. So I wanted to take this time to just talk a little bit about a big final that's set up. The women's U20 final is set for their World Cup. Japan defeated England 2-0, while Spain survived against one of the tournament favorites and host nation France. Both teams are looking for their first U20 World Cup title. To me, one of the first things that really sticks out is that this is the first time that I can remember, and I know there are other examples, but they're few and far between, that both teams in the final came out of the same group. And in this case, it's Group C. So there is a game that we can look and see how this may play out. That result was a 1-0 win for Spain. And that happened in the 16th minute, Carmen Montero having the golden goal in that one. Looking at the stat line, it was pretty similar. Spain had the slight edge in pretty much everything. Shots on target was 10-4 to 8-3. Possession was 56 to 44%. And there was about 90 more passes that went in favor of Spain compared to Japan. The rest of the way out, it was pretty similar. Corners was the one exception, as you kind of have that Asian versus English style, or Asian versus European style, where sometimes you'll play for a corner and get that set piece advantage, where an Asian squad typically doesn't mind yielding a corner as much as some other European sides do. I think the obvious question there right off the bat is, can you get around the way Spain has been winning games, which is getting out in front and then maintaining possession? They've done that in a lot of the games so far. But Japan, they've got some good players that can really create space off the ball. They've hit a lot of posts in this tournament, which is a thing of note, because sometimes it does create a rebound opportunity, like the second goal that they got against England in their semifinal. But they're getting goals. They had six against Paraguay in the final group stage game. They had 3 against Germany in the quarterfinals. I mean, they're really starting to go and to roll, especially after I felt that they got lucky against the United States in that first group stage game. I mean, United States was the team on the outside looking in, and they went 1-1-1 in that group stage. So it's a very interesting aspect to see how Group C was the group of death, without question, this year. But on the other side of the ball, where you've got a team starting to click and get rolling, That's not how Spain has been going. Spain has been getting out quick and then maintaining and grinding it out. It's almost luck has been becoming a factor for the Spanish side. Spain went up 2-0 on the U.S. by halftime and ended up drawing with the Americans as they completely fell apart in the last 10 minutes. Spain looked good against Nigeria, but that's because Nigeria didn't bother to show up in the first half. And once the second half started to come along, that game was a lot more equal. You got to remember Nigeria has been runner-up in this tournament twice before, so it's nothing to sneeze at with Nigeria. And then Spain received the only red card in the entire tournament in the semifinal match against France. On a compounded yellow card to Aitana Bonmati in the 69th minute. And I think that actually helped them out because it forced them to bring their defenses back even more and really batten down the hatches against a French team that can really create some dynamic moves in passing. And there was a reason why France looked to be one of the favorites in this tournament. And I think Spain got lucky here to outlast the French. Now, regardless of what happens, there will be some kind of history here. Neither team have made it to the final game in this tournament before. Only 3 countries have ever won the tournament in the 8 times it has been played. U.S. and German, the U.S. and German sides, rather, have won it 3 times. And North Korea has been the defending champions. They won it once, I believe, in 2008 as well. So this is going to be history. Spain's never made it to the finals before. Japan has never made it to the finals before. Japan has a couple of third-place finishes, but this is the first time that either team has made it to the final. Spain has a lot going for them, even though they've got that luck factor, I think, that they've relied on. They are getting out ahead. They are finding good passes. They are killing time effectively once they have the lead. But as the national team grows and they compete a little bit better, people like Reiko Ueki, Don Endo, Takarada, they've done an amazing job of creating space off the ball. They can dribble and shoot, and that's something that I don't believe a lot of teams have shown them. The U.S. maybe has shown a little. France kind of did, but like they were relying more on a nice pass to set up and kind of have that little bit of motion and collapsing down towards the goal, where Japan, once they get set up, they can like turn and shoot, which is something that Spain has kind of struggled at and has really relied on their goalkeeper to help out with. But with Japan's penchant to going towards the pipes anyway, they're going to be able to really expand that goal even larger and find some really good options. On the other side of the ball, I think if Japan can not yield in the first half, they've got a decent, serviceable goalie in Samba. They've got some depth on defense too. Their back four has done a solid job this time, but I think they're going up against their biggest challenge yet in Spain, and I think it's going to be a very key factor. If that back four cannot yield in the first half, I think Japan's going to take it, and if Japan could even take the lead early on and force the Spanish side to play with a little bit of desperation, that could be the deciding factor here. Ultimately, I think I'm going to take Japan in this one 2-0. The Women's U20 World Cup final will be Friday, August 24th at 1:30 Eastern, 9:30 Pacific, with the third-place game between France and England at 10 and 7, respectively. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, Zach Wolpoff will join us to talk about the drama breaking down in Bordeaux. You're listening to Your Soccer Passport here on Public House Media. Welcome back to Your Soccer Passport. Joining us now is Zach Wolpoff. He's a Public House Media soccer analyst. He's a crucial part of Your Soccer Passport World Cup edition, and he can be heard on the Cheap Seats broadcast with his brother occasionally. Zach, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Good, really good. Better than Aban, who's dealing with an injury right now from his playing time. So we wish him the best of luck, and just want to say thank you ahead of time as well to help fill in and take on an increased load this week. So thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me. It's always fun to do this.
All right. So because you are our guest and you have a pretty good nose for a lot of the not typical mainstream big leagues that we have in the U.S., you've got a pretty big story that you don't think has gotten a lot of American coverage from the French league, specifically out of Bordeaux. Their manager, Gus Poyet, has been suspended for a week after criticizing club ownership, handling of player transfers. And I've got the quote here. He said, "I am not happy. It is one of my worst days at the club. What the club have done with Gaëtan Laborde is a disgrace. I think we have to stop here. I told the club not to let him leave until we had bought someone else. They have not recruited and they let him go. I arrived at 11:35 a.m. Laborde was not here. He was in Montpellier. Nobody told me anything." Now, the most important thing about this entire exchange is that this is in a post-game press conference after a victory. And so like obviously it was stewing on his mind the entire time, and Bordeaux responds by suspending him for a week, and it is by all accounts right now he's not coming back from this one. So Zach, break this thing down for me. What exactly is going on? Not just in terms of like the response by the club, but also what led up to this beforehand.
This is, for whatever reason, and I have no idea why, if you're not a top-tier French team, and the top-tier French teams are Paris Saint-Germain, Olympique Marseille, Olympique Lyonnais, and now it's Monaco, because Monaco has jumped up into the fray because of Mbappe and selling Mbappe. It's really those top four. Everybody else is just weirdly in and out of competence. Sometimes you have things like this and no one knows it. Other times you have fans fighting with each other, you have fans fighting with ownership, and it's just another day in the French league, and that's how they write it off. And to see that, when I saw this, when I was eating breakfast actually, all I could do was laugh and be like, this is such a French league thing, to go against your manager's wishes and sell off one of your best strikers. It's mind-boggling. The guy that they sold off, he's represented France at the youth level and made 20 appearances last year for Bordeaux. And he came through the club's academy. And to see that he's just being sold off willy-nilly without the managers doing anything, what are you trying to do? Seriously, why are you doing this? This is just so bizarre.
And the thing is that it's not like he said, don't ever touch my player. He's got to be here, and that's the only thing that could ever be expected. He said, give me a replacement first. Have a contingency plan. This is not something that is truly unacceptable in any way, shape, or form, by wanting to make sure that you have a contingency plan for a player in place, a player that is of that level and caliber, and one that is honestly kind of crucial to Bordeaux' striking attack is what he brought to the pitch every time. And so if you've got a player that is really influential in terms of the success offensively on the pitch for your team, and you don't have a direct replacement for him, then why are you selling off? It's an order of operations issue, and I think it was legitimate for him to call it out. I think the question is now do you think that the response by Bordeaux is also legitimate?
Well, the move is legitimate. The move, I get it. You're trying to sell off players. You're trying to get more money. A lot of French owners, they're very cheap. If you look at Marseille a few years back before Frank McCourt came in, Marseille sold off a bunch of players. They sold off Benjamin Mendy to Monaco. They sold off Dimitri Payet to West Ham. They sold off Steve Mandanda to Crystal Palace. They even sold Gignac to Tigres in Mexico. They sold Ayew off to Swansea. And most of these guys still love and cherish Marseille. They never wanted to leave. They were forced to leave because of bad ownership and cheap owners. So, see that? Yeah, it kind of makes sense. But, if they were to pick up the phone and say to Monaco, okay, we'll sell you this player, but can you loan us a striker for the full season? Or loan us a development player that's really good for the season? I'm sure he would have been happy and Poyet wouldn't have made such a big stink about this. But this is just something that really boggles my mind as to how you can have this happen and then have the manager go off like this. I mean, he was fired from Brighton when he was commentating a game for the BBC, and he was told that live on air at halftime. I'm sorry, but if I'm going to get fired, I would at least like to walk into the ownership and shake the guy's hand and say, thank you for my time, it was really enjoyable, blah, 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 and walk out the door and pick up my stuff on the way out. I mean, seriously.
It's interesting because I actually watched that clip. It's hilarious in its own way, and also completely reeking of professionalism by Brighton and Hove Albion. I mean, it is unbelievable to have it where you are notified of your firing by having production crews of the BBC literally print out a webpage and hand it to you. Like, why would you do that unless you were trying to ditch the guy? And that's exactly what's happened here, is that they suspended him. Now in Bordeaux, it doesn't look like he's going to be back. You can write it off as a French team being French, but ultimately the guy just won multiple games and did an amazing job before he got to Bordeaux in the Chinese league. And if you're talking about a place where your mouth could possibly get you in trouble, China may be one of those places. Places,
let's be honest.
That's a true struggle here, is that if you're talking about a guy whose mouth is going to get him in trouble, then it's not. And to say that the ownership group there is a disgrace, I think for me, it's a bigger disgrace to go out and suspend him for this amount of time for literally just pointing out and being passionate about the situation. Because for me, growing up in the U.S., dealing with, having your heart and sleeve out there, the coaches' rants that you've heard from people like Dennis Green, or my favorite is Mike Gundy's pick on me. I'm a grown man. I'm 40 with the press at Oklahoma State. You hear this, and you know what I hear Gus Poyet actually say? He says, I want due, respectable process for my players. And that is something that Bordeaux decided not to do. And this is going to be something, whether Poyet is there or not, will hurt Bordeaux in the future years to come. Like, at least for this season and next season. It's going to be very fresh on people's mind because this is not going to go away.
I completely agree with that. It's him sticking up for his players, him sticking up for his team. And just because you can put somebody else in there doesn't really mean that the team's going to want that. I mean, you can literally replace anybody with anyone. And just because you do that doesn't mean your team's going to gel around and make sense with the guy and play well under a new manager that they may not want. They may actually like him, and they may actually start a boycott, which would be very, very interesting to watch their issues and then have that escalate and how the LFP is going to respond to that. And this is all while Bordeaux is in the middle of European qualifications, keep in mind. So this is even funnier.
Well, I mean, funny is definitely the debatable word. I think there's a number of adjectives that you could put in there that would be applicable in one way or the other. But Zach, this is a good story to bring up. I think this is one of those things that we have to provide analysis on here on Your Soccer Passport about, because it does have an influence and a ripple effect throughout the way that the English, or not the English, but the European leagues kind of have a ripple effect around each other with having so many great equal quality leagues. This is something that's going to have an impact on the French league as well as neighboring leagues. So very good points brought up, and thank you for bringing this story to our attention. We're going to take a quick break, though, bring up our world headlines segment here coming up, and then because of the shifting around, we'll have Zach on for one more segment talking about our game of the week and another interesting deal that could bring quality European soccer more consistently to the U.S. and Canada. We'll talk about that here after the break. You're listening to Your Soccer Passport here on Public House Media. Time now for Worldwide Headlines here on Your Soccer Passport, a segment touching on some of the other big news from around the soccer world. The MLS has two major scoring records in jeopardy. Atlanta's Joseph Martinez scored Sunday versus the Columbus Crew, tying the single-season goal total of 27 goals. The record was first set by Roy Lassiter and is now shared with Chris Wondolowski and Bradley Wright Phillips. The tally is also one short of Diego Valeri's 9 straight games with a goal. Martinez next plays Friday at Orlando City. Artem Dzyuba had a hat trick for Zenit St. Petersburg in a UEFA Europa League qualifying round against Dynamo Minsk last Thursday, August 16th. After finding themselves down 4-0 in aggregate, Zenit scored 8 goals in the second leg to take the aggregate total 8-5. The feat is even more impressive after Leandro Paredes received a red card in the 72nd minute, and half of those goals were scored in extra time. Today's worldwide headlines are brought to you by Public House Media Store Envy. If you love your soccer passport or any other show here on Public House Media, show it off with a line of shirts, hats, mugs, and more. Visit publichousemedia.storeenvy.com. Welcome back to Your Soccer Passport. Reminder, you can find us on social media through Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. That is going to be the best way to get a hold of us here at the show, to tell us what you want to hear on this show. Your involvement is huge, because without you as fans listening, then we just sound stupid and talking into a computer microphone. So please involve with us on those social media platforms. You heard in the background laughter. That's Zach Wolpoff. He's filling in this week in an extended guest appearance. We will be talking about our game of the week coming up soon from Eastern Europe. But right now we want to talk about an interesting storyline that's been developing over the weekend. And that is the deal between La Liga and Relevant. They recently signed a 15-year deal that would help bring more promotion to the top Spanish league, with a lot of different aspects involved, including having actual count for points in the table games in the U.S. and Canada. That has been met with immediate backlash from the players, from the Spanish Soccer Federation, a number of people saying that this is not a good thing. So with that being in mind, let's get a crash course in this from Zach. Zach, what do you see in this deal, and what are your opinions on it?
So this is 100% a marketing ploy. No different than the NFL going over to London, playing 3 games a season in London. Major League Baseball going to Puerto Rico or Mexico City. Next year they're going to London. With the NBA games going to London. This is just marketing their brand and expanding their market share into a new area. Currently, when you wake up on Saturday and you turn on the television looking for soccer, what are you most likely to find? The Premier League and the German Bundesliga. You don't really find La Liga almost anywhere. It's very expensive. Cable packages have it, but you don't get it on the mainstay channels. And so La Liga is really, although you have Madrid and Barcelona, everything else is really not that big of a deal here in the States. So they're trying to grow and expand their brand and make it bigger and get more knowledge of more awareness, really, of the league. Because really, it's not much. I've never seen somebody walking around America in a Seville jersey. I've seen them walking around America in a Wolves jersey, and a really bizarre Oxford United jersey this weekend. I swear, in New York City, you can't make this up. But you can't find it mostly anywhere else.
You know, the thing about La Liga to me that I think is really interesting is that, yeah, there's relegation to it. Yeah, there's different aspects to it. That is just like any other league that you have, but you only hear about the Madrid and Barcelonas. You don't hear about any of the other teams in the league, and you wouldn't be able to identify it. When looking at Bundesliga, even though that league does have some more name-stay power behind it, you still only had 17,000 people for a game in Pittsburgh between Borussia Dortmund and Benfica. And so, like, to have a game with that little, and then have up the road in Ann Arbor, Michigan, playing at the University of Michigan, they filled the Big House. They sold out the Big House, one of the largest stadiums for football in the United States, at the University of Michigan for a Man U versus Liverpool game. Now, that being said, it was Man U, and it is Ann Arbor. And if there's one place for hipsters in the Midwest, it's Ann Arbor. And they'll go anything about the main state teams, your Man U, your Madrids, your Pierre Saint-Germain. So, like, they like the Yankees equivalent of whatever league is around. But that big gap between literally only being able to fill 5 sections worth of the Big House when you play a game in Pittsburgh because of the teams there is a huge dividing draw between whether or not a league like this could be successful. As far as what you can do in the U.S., they sold out in Miami when they did a friendly between Real Madrid and Barcelona in July 2017.
I was at that game, to be quite honest.
You were at that game. What was that environment like?
Oh, that was crazy. You had people from all over Miami and the Caribbean there. I know people who flew in from New York. Marlins man was there, and it was just maddening. Like, I was there with my German friend. I walked around the concourse. Everyone was speaking Spanish. Everyone was thrilled by this. It was a carnival-like atmosphere that I didn't even feel this in the opening match of the World Cup, which I was also at. It was really bizarre, and America needs to experience that because America doesn't get to experience that. Major League Soccer does not convey itself to a carnival-like atmosphere. I've been to Major League Soccer games. I went to the home opener, Audi Field's opener. That was not a carnival-like atmosphere. That was more confusion than anything else. And, I mean, I really think that this could work. But a lot of the Europeans are saying, no, this can't work because European soccer is about tribalism. It's about supporting your team. It's about tradition, yada, yada, yada. They don't understand the whole marketing side of it, of expanding your horizon, expanding to a new point in time. And it's just weird because other leagues have tried this before and it's been moderately successful. The Italian Super Cup was hosted in DC in 1993, as well as New Jersey in 2003. So, I mean, this is a possibility, and only time's going to tell as to how well this is going to work out. But a lot of the issues with the ICC this year, I feel, were price more than anything else.
You know, you bring up price, and I think that's a fair statement. But I think La Liga is probably the wrong league to try this with. You know, the EPL has done a great job with that kind of stuff. But they probably have the best name recognition. I've never been able to have a relegation discussion in a coffee shop about La Liga, even with the immigrants from Eastern Europe, and have been able to talk about relegation in Series A, or even international stuff with Asian influence in the area that I live in. You can talk about that. But I've never heard anybody talk about a relegation battle for La Liga, and it's probably the biggest league that I've never been able to have that conversation. You can't get it on American sports packages unless you have beIN Sports. And the only place that I know has beIN Sports are bars. And unless you're at the bar and you want to watch a Spanish language soccer game, then you're not doing a very good job, because I can go out there and watch La Liga on Facebook through English broadcasts from Univision and Telemundo. I can go out there and I can watch foreign language broadcasts of other soccer leagues that I would find more entertaining because they're just worse off and I can enjoy them. La Liga itself has branding issues in the United States. And the other aspect, too, that you have to continue on with this is also Canada. This includes Canadian games, Canadian venues as well, and they may be able to kind of, poke the ship a little bit more and ride the wave with that motion. But I can't see this working as effectively, even if it's a real world game. If it's a real world game, you're going to have a likelihood of having one good team, one sucky team. They're going to have a blowout. Everybody's going to feel upset and tired and jet lagged and all this other kind of stuff. And they're going to be in weird spots of the country or the world that they're not familiar with. And it's frustrating to me because I can't see the benefit of this coming out. I'm not opposed to this idea, but you talk about the carnival aspect. You talk about the transfers. You talk about what it would be for the fans to come over to the United States or Canada to watch these games. It isn't going to be there. It's not cost efficient. It's not. It's not going to work. That's just the thing, is it's not going to work with La Liga. If you wanted to try it with the Italian Series A, if you wanted to try it with an Eastern European league and put them in some really good spots, if you wanted to bring in an Arabic league and put them in some place like Dearborn, a lower level league that has a spot of high immigrant locations in the U.S., I think that could work more than La Liga could. And it is ultimately going to be a huge discussion for whether or not a group like Relevant, who has such high-powered marketing aspects inside the soccer world, can pull this off. And my guess is that it's a no.
All right, so I want to bring up two really big points that you talked about. The EPL doing this, the EPL talked about a week 39 where they would send teams all across the world to play the last week of the season. And that was quickly rejected by everybody because they were like, no, this is our city. These are our teams. We cannot put them out in all corners of the earth to play one last week. It was stupid, according to them. And so that was pretty much scrapped. But the Spanish Footballers Union, the AFE, has been very critical of La Liga for this. David Aganza, who's the head, said footballers are not currency that can be used in business deals that only benefit third parties. And he does have a point, but at the same time, if a payday is 30 million euros for a team, payday is 30 million euros. You can't get that every single game. And if you can somehow manage to get 30 million euros, I'm sure you can pay off whoever you need to shut up and agree to that.
All right, that will wrap up that aspect because we do want to make sure that we get time in for a featured game promo. You brought up one that I think is going to be pretty interesting. It's the first leg of a Champions League playoff series between Red Star Belgrade and Red Bull Salzburg. Definitely an interesting matchup. Give us just kind of a scene setter about this matchup.
So it's the first leg of the Champions League final put into the group stage. I'm blanking on the term here, but it's the final of the qualification round. That's it. Thank you. Red Bull Salzburg, they were a semifinalist in the Europa League last year. They can play defensively. They can play offensively. They really know how to press you and agitate you. Red Star Belgrade, not a lot's known about the Serbian League here in the United States, and I don't blame you, it's the Serbian League. Red Star Belgrade won the Champions League in 1991, beating Marseille in penalty kicks. But this, unfortunately, from what I can tell, it's going to be a closed-off stadium. Red Star is known for having a lot of players and a lot of very passionate and very dedicated fans. And that is unfortunately going to be missed in this leg being held in Red Star Stadium. But I'm still expecting a very hard-fought, very, very tight matchup between the two sides that really, I think, could go into penalty kicks on on the return leg.
Absolutely. I mean, when you look at what Salzburg and Belgrade both bring to the table, the odds from Betfair, BetVictor, Paddy Power, all pretty much have this overwhelmingly in favor of a 1-1 draw for the betting odds. So it's a very, very unique situation to have it be listed as a draw to this power, I guess is the best way to say it. Like, you don't usually see betting odds so overwhelmingly in favor of a draw without either side having a bigger advantage in terms of to win. That being said, I know that you had kind of picked a little bit about Salzburg being the more varied team, that they're more versatile. With that versatility, what do you think Belgrade can do to try to stop Salzburg and control it so that way Belgrade gets their own game? What can Salzburg do to kind of mix it up?
Well, really, Salzburg's really this team that controls the midfield, and the best way to stop someone from controlling the midfield is just to press. and really get on them and just prevent them from doing anything. I know it's annoying. I know it's painful to watch, but Marseille got lucky when they beat them in the semifinals on a corner kick. You need to capitalize on all your chances. You need to capitalize on the corners, on your free kicks. If you get lucky and get a penalty, you need to put that on the back of the net, because if you don't, then you shouldn't be here.
Okay, well, the first leg of this series will be Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, noon Pacific. Remember to subscribe to Your Soccer Podcast on iTunes. Your Soccer Passport on iTunes, Spotify, and wherever your favorite podcasts are found. For Zach Wolpoff, I'm Brice Burge, and you've just listened to Your Soccer Passport here on Public House Media. Get better, Yvonne.